I can do it. I don't care.
I'm like, I don't remember. Yep, it's you.
It's been a while. I don't remember.
Listening to podcast is no replacement for real training. While we attempt to provide accurate commentary, we hold no responsibility on how you use the information we provide. Get medical training. In the blink of an eye, everyday order can be replaced with once-in-a-lifetime chaos. Be prepared. This is the Civilian Medical Podcast.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Civilian Medical Podcast. We are still alive. We have not died yet from the coronavirus. Sean, my co-host, probably had the coronavirus.
Maybe.
Maybe. I had a sore throat and was not feeling good for like a week and a half. So we both kind of were under the weather. So
Yeah,
but we're back.
It was crazy, man. I felt really, really, really bad for a few days.
It wouldn't surprise me. Now, you did not get tested, right?
I didn't get tested because I never had any like real chest kind of engagement going on. No pressure, no pain, nothing like that. Just a really high fever that it took 2.5 days to break. And
That's crazy.
Yeah, we'll kind of talk about it as we go here. But yeah, I was definitely down and out. I felt really, really bad. Super high fever, pretty sore throat, dry cough, but no real chest engagement or anything.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited by this episode. We've been catching flack, or at least I have, for not putting out another episode. I'm like, all right, well, we moved. We're in a new studio now, and we moved into our house, and we both got sick. I was like, all right, I promise there's another episode coming. We have not quit.
No, absolutely not. And in fact, we were just talking, we're going to kind of do some weekly updates on what we're going to talk about today coming forward. We'll talk about this kind of for the time being because it's relevant, and we'll make sure that we're putting out content. And if I cough, I'm sorry. I'll try to get away from the mic, but it just might happen. It's a stupid, dry, non-productive, annoying cough. But yeah, it exists.
Social distancing.
Exactly. What was that word?
I can't say it. Shut up.
Social distancing. All right, perfect. So
I tried.
What's the topic of today's show?
So we're going to talk about the coronavirus, COVID-19. You know, I kind of got back probably a couple weeks ago and started working on notes on this, and I was like, all right, let's do it. And honestly, the time, 2-3 weeks ago, I was downplaying it. I said, this is stupid, that they're panicking. This was just in China at the time, and really Europe hadn't really seen a big push on it yet. And I'm like, all right, this is stupid. We can even go conspiracy theorists and think I think China created it, because they were having protests and all this crazy stuff. And now I'm like, ooh, this is a big deal. I'm trying to stay in the middle ground on this. Like, I don't want it to be like I'm just blowing it off, but at the same time, like, this is a big deal. Like, I think this is going to be one of those events we look back on and go, man, this was history. Like, this is what happened. And, I can still see like government overreach. Like, we can talk about all that stuff too, but to the fact that the government is able to shut down everything and that we're not eating, we're not going out to dinner anymore. And this virus is super contagious. It is contagious. The death rate and mortality rate still, last I saw in America, at least, was 1.5%. So I don't know. Like, I really played it off as a flu at first. And now I think it's more of a bigger deal than that. And we can still say that it's, it's similar to the flu, but only time will tell. Like we're recording this on the 23rd. And so I think this next week is going to be a big deal for us to see, does this kind of downplay and we see it peak like they want it to, or does it continue to grow and now we're in bigger trouble?
Yeah, I agree. I downplayed it too. Said it was kind of a nothing burger. And to this point it has been, but that's only because of response. I think that we are going to see a huge influx of new cases as more tests become available and people are tested that weren't tested previously. But one of the things that kind of freaks me out is kind of seeing us on a very similar trajectory to Italy and seeing where they are, a couple of weeks down the road from us, which is not a good place.
Yep. I would like to think that our healthcare system is better than Italy's. I think as far as population, we're pretty similar. Maybe they have a little bit older population, and they are for the most part, and generally more together than what we are. But we're seeing that in the United States, like Seattle, New York, like Atlanta, where we have these big cities that you're seeing more of the outbreaks. So I think we can kind of trend that information from Italy. Obviously, the information coming out of China, I don't think was very accurate. Just being kind of shaded on that, but I feel like Italy, we can trust that information coming out of there, and it's scary. The fact that they are probably a couple weeks ahead of us, and we can see that, so we do not want to catch them.
Yeah, 100% agree. And yeah, there's so many social factors that kind of go along with that, but just to kind of watch that has been interesting, and I've been watching it really closely. Let's start kind of at the beginning. We'll talk about virus and bacteria, and what are the differences between those two things? And is this a virus or is it a bacteria, or what is it? What's
so yeah, so this is a virus. Viruses are smaller than bacteria, and they can live without a living host. A virus attaches itself to the cells and can program itself and kind of reproduce itself, but it needs that living organism to survive. Typically, viruses are going to be contagious. We can see this like the cold, the flu, kind of like those are typically what we see as viruses. Unfortunately, antibiotics are no good for us. And, we kind of talk about, the viruses, they need a living host, but they can survive on surfaces and in the air for a certain amount of time. And we're kind of seeing that now with the COVID-19, that it's living in the air. I think last I saw was like up to 30 minutes to an hour, or it was a couple hours. I don't remember, to be honest with you, but it's living in the air. It's living on surfaces longer than we think it does. So it can survive outside a host for a while.
Yeah, which is crazy and almost, I wouldn't say unheard of, but definitely abnormal. And so if someone expels those respiratory droplets that include the flu virus, it'll kind of hang out in the air until it settles onto a surface where it can last for quite a I don't know specifically what the time frame is, but hours, I believe.
Yep. And that's what I was going to mention that before we actually got started, is the fact that on this podcast, we're trying to give you accurate information as of right now.
Yeah.
We're learning stuff from hours to days. So by the time this is posted, that we may learn something different. So don't bash us because we said something. We're trying to provide you accurate information here. So don't bash us too much. But what you were talking about as far as the droplets coming out into the air, I think that's where people are getting confused on the internet as far as it being airborne versus droplets. And that's why they're saying social distance. I can't say that word.
We'll call it quarantine.
Yes, quarantine. Because that 6 feet rule is because the droplets are heavier than air and they're going to fall. If it's airborne, then that's the system that can, I guess, like up into the HVAC system and spreads way out. Like if you had, and thank gosh, this thing isn't airborne, because if it was, if you're at the mall or you're at a building, it gets up in the HVAC system and it spreads out crazy amount. So luckily it is droplet form. And so that's a good thing for us. Kind of going back, to bacterias as antibiotics, you need antibiotics for that. And some kind of things are strep throat, UTIs, and pneumonia. So that's kind of the difference between a virus and a bacteria.
Yeah. I think that's definitely good, but yeah. Are there medicines for viruses?
So yes, there are some. I'm trying to think. What's the one they're looking at now?
Is that Plaquenil, basically?
Yes. What was it for? It's for something
malaria.
Malaria. Yes. Thank you. My brain.
I will also say that they use Plaquenil to treat Sjogren's syndrome, which is kind of an autoimmune disease. And Plaquenil's, I've actually had a lot of experience, not with it personally, but with someone in the family, and they've been on it for, I don't know, probably a decade or more. And it's kind of one of those weird ones. So to hear that, I was like, oh, Plaquenil, I know that one.
Right.
I don't know what the actual drug name is. I just know what the brand name is.
Correct.
All right.
And so yeah, there are medications that can treat the viruses that we're looking at now. For COVID-19, they're still looking at some stuff. And we'll have to see. Like, that kind of scares me too, is, we need data, we need science, we need research on this. We don't know what the side effects are. Some of these viruses are going to be. Some of the medications either. And we don't know what the side effects of those medicines are. So that kind of scares me. And that you're going to see that they're going to come out with a vaccine. And like what really scares and think about that is that, all right, we come out with a vaccine, perfect. And now 5 years later, we're like, oh, I have cancer now because of this vaccine. So
Yeah.
it's a dang if you don't.
And if they rush a vaccine to market without animal testing and we end up with zombies, I've got my zombie gat right here.
Yes, I just picked up one this weekend too.
It's a high point for the people.
It's a high point. I paid $50 for it. I was super excited. Kenneth was like, "You're stupid."
That is such a great deal. And he texted me. He's like, "I've got a confession." I was like, "Uh-oh, he's replacing me on the show." He sent me a picture of a high point. It was so great.
I was super excited. It was worth the $50 just to be able to text friends to go, "It's coming to an end. I bought a high point."
So yeah, they're seeing some results with Plaquenil. Other antivirals are like HIV medications and things like that I've seen reports that are sometimes successful in fighting this. And a real quick clarification, and then we'll get back to that real quick, is there's a couple different terms that we're seeing all over the news. We're seeing the term coronavirus and we're seeing COVID-19. Like, what the heck, Skinny Medic? Which is which, and which one do I care about? I don't even, what is it?
So the COVID is a virus that's been around. This is anything new? That's like I saw that on Facebook that people taking pictures of Lysol and it says it kills human COVID. And I'm like, yes, this is not a new virus. It's something that's
coronavirus, right? Not COVID.
Yes, sorry. It's something. This is not a new virus. It just mutated and changed, and now we're like, oh, now we're stepping back, going panicking that we don't know how to treat it. So, and I think that's the difference between like the flu and this COVID-19 is the fact that we have some sort of immunity built up to the flu. Maybe you get a vaccine for it, or maybe you're just around it and you have a good immune system. But this is a new virus, so we don't have the immunity built up for it.
Yeah, and as I understand it, right, the coronavirus is the virus. It's the one that we're seeing the pictures of all over everywhere, the microscopic pictures and everything. And COVID-19, as I understand it, is the actual illness that we can get, the respiratory illness that we can get from having the virus in our systems, correct?
Correct. That's the way I understand it right now, too.
Okay, cool. So just to be clear, like coronavirus is out there, and there's a lot of things. And one of the things that makes this very interesting and very different is like Skinny Medic just said, people are exposed to the flu all the time, and sometimes they catch it and sometimes they don't, but those viruses are out there all the time. This is something that is yet unseen in the world. It's this version of this coronavirus is yet unseen. And that's why it's such a big deal, because no one really understands how it's going to go through the population and how do we continue on. And, even if we do the quarantining and people, we slow the spread, like, what does that mean long term? Like, people are still going to catch it, but I think just not knowing, because it's kind of brand new in our universe, I guess our universe, but if nothing more, just in our world, in the world that we live in today, is kind of what's got everyone a little bit freaked out, right?
Right. And like I said, even at first, like I was super downplaying this. I was like, oh, it's no deadlier than the flu. Like there are people die of cardiovascular disease every day. So really downplayed it. And now all of a sudden, the last thing I saw was like 600 people a day in Italy are dying because of the coronavirus. And in the big spectrum, 600 people is not a whole lot. There are more people die in that car wrecks, but still, like it's going to overwhelm our healthcare system. Yeah. And I think that's for me, like that's when I'm like, all right, so 600 people a day are dying. We're at what 33,000 in the United States, roughly. Did I pull that right? But I'll let you look that up. But I think that's the problem, is that maybe not necessarily that 600 people are dying. Like if it's your family, yes, it's a big deal. But for the most part, it's not. But our ICUs are already packed out. Our ERs are already packed out. Our hospital's overwhelmed. Our EMS is running at bare minimum to keep running calls. So now you're overwhelming the healthcare system by just these people being sick. And I think that's the problem is, for me, that's the concern. And that's why we've kind of limited how we're going out at my house. We're not going outside very much. The kids haven't been out at all. I went and kind of got what I needed and came back. I did go to Lowe's just because I needed something, but I was like, all right, trying to pay attention. So I think it's just being smart about this.
Yeah. So USA has 41,569 as of right now when these numbers were updated. I saw your real-time numbers.
And I saw that, like in South Carolina, we have 196 cases right now with 3 deaths.
Yeah. So there's been 8,023 new cases since yesterday in the United States. Again, 504 deaths, 85 deaths overnight. And interesting numbers. I keep track of this, which is why I was able to get it so fast. I've got it pretty much up 24/7, just kind of watching it. But let's.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Like Candace and I are doing the same thing. Like we, every night, every morning, we're checking to see,
Yeah.
what the latest numbers are. It's kind of weird that we're in that time. We're in that age.
Yeah. I mean, knowledge is power, right? And I don't want people online to like trick me and fool me into thinking something that's not true. And it's so hard to find information on this. And again, like Skinny Medic said, we're trying to get this right, but there's going to be things that we misstate. There's going to be things that turn out to be not true, and we'll try to keep that. We'll try to keep those corrections coming as we learn things. But let's talk real quick about this social distancing or quarantining and why it's important. So, what happens is when this virus spreads, we see a huge spike, and in most of the graphs, you'll see a little line that's basically a blue line. And that blue line is basically what our medical system can handle as far as critical care beds and things like that. So what happens is we see this huge spike that way, way, way exceeds what our medical systems can handle. Because people are going to catch it. And then the people that are going to catch it are either going to die or recover from it. And then that spike starts to come down and it all evens out. Social distancing or quarantining is meant to flatten that spike to make sure that it stays under what our medical system can handle. But I think we're already over that spike. But social distancing measures, they're saying will keep us under that to the best of the ability to keep it from being overwhelmed, right? Because a lot of people probably can survive this as long as they're not compromised or high risk or things like that. But what's going to happen and what they're actually, I've seen reports in Italy. I have not confirmed or substantiated whether they're just rumors or not, but apparently they're making choices that people over 60 aren't being intubated and put on ventilators and things like that at this point because they just don't have the beds or the infrastructure to take care of them. So if it comes down between a 30-year-old and a 60-year-old, 30-year-old's getting it, 60-year-old's dying. So I hear that those kind of choices, and if you think about it logically, those kind of choices will have to be made at some point if we overwhelm the medical system too much.
Right. We've talked about triage in this, in our episodes early on, we talked about doing triage and the fact that if you're overwhelmed, you may have to make that uncomfortable decision of triage and walking away from someone that if they had been in that injury by themselves, they would have survived. But because they were injured like that with 5 other people, you have to pick and choose who can survive. And that's the problem. The social distancing is, I can't say distancing today. I'm like dissing. So, God, I'm not even drunk.
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet. It's 5:00 somewhere. But the fact that quarantine, and we should be doing that anyway during flu season. If you feel like you have the flu, you're running a fever, you should stay at home. If you're sick, you should stay at home. Don't go to work. That's what you have sick time for. But now the government's telling us how to do that. And I agree that that's what Kenneth and I talked about for our family is the fact that if I got COVID-19, got this illness, it'll be fine. I probably would be okay. I do have some underlying medical conditions. I have an autoimmune disorder. So I do have that, I'm in a higher risk. But like Kenneth's grandmother is 95 years old. If she catches this, that's pretty much a death sentence for her. And we know that. But we also know if she catches the flu, it could be a death sentence for her. So we're not going anywhere near her. And so even though that you're a 45-year-old male, or we are seeing it now younger, but you feel like you're healthy, you're fine, and you catch it, you can spread it to someone who is not as healthy as you are. And I think that's the scary part.
Yeah, for sure. Days before I was getting sick, honestly, just going to the grocery store just to get normal groceries, not panic buying or anything like that. The amount of old and infirm that I saw in the stores kind of depressed me a little bit because I was like, man, like literally that coming to the store right now for them, I don't know if they understand it, but it's a life and death decision that they made. Like they pick up a can of tomatoes that somebody else picked up and put down, and that person was carrying the coronavirus, whether sick or engaged or not. That huge, tough choices.
Definitely. And, we like you said, we are seeing reports and, take it for what it is, but they're having to triage people on these ventilators. And we're already seeing like the federal government here is saying, hey, if you can make a ventilator, we're going to give you money for it. And because they know there's going to be a shortage. N95 masks, PPE gear, like that's a huge shortage. And we have been out for weeks now and have no ability to get restock at all on those kind of things. So I hope it doesn't come to that point here, but I hope that's why we're doing this quarantine. That's why we're doing, staying away from everybody, and we're doing this. So we'll see.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So it says in the notes that flu viruses can survive in the air for several hours. Tell us about kind of that whole area there.
Yeah, so they can survive in the air for several hours. So if I was working on the ambulance and I transported someone who had the flu virus, I would typically put a mask on them. Probably supposed to put a mask on me, but wouldn't in the past wouldn't necessarily do it. Being completely honest with you guys, but I'd put a mask on them and we would transport them. And afterwards, the call, we wiped down everything in the back of the truck with a cavity wipe, bleach wipe, something like that. And we cleaned the surfaces. We cleaned everything that the patient may have touched or that was around the patient, the bench, the door handles, things like that, the radio, everything I may have touched with gloves in the back of the truck. And so keeping the surfaces clean in highly trafficked area is important. Right as this was hitting, I had to go to the mall to buy a suit. I didn't own a suit, and I was speaking at an EMS conference in South Carolina, so I had to go buy a suit. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go to the mall. I can find some old guy to tell me how to put a suit on, tell me how to, what a 2-button suit, which button you're supposed to button and all that crap. So I go and I touched the handrail on accident, and immediately I was like, oh, that's nasty. So I carry hand sanitizer. I've always carried hand sanitizer with me. So I pulled out, wiped my hands down with hand sanitizer, and kept going. It's kind of one of those things you're like, oh, that's it. Immediately clicked. I was like, oh, that's nasty. I shouldn't do that. But yes, it can live on surfaces. When I get on the ambulance, I clean the radio mic. I clean the steering wheel. I clean the button that turns the lights on because I know guys are nasty. EMS people are nasty. They typically don't clean very well. So I'm like, if you had whatever on your hands, I want to make sure that it's nice and clean when I get on the ambulance. So I clean everything down to start the shift off with.
Makes a lot of sense. Have you ever realized how much you touch your face?
Yes.
Coronavirus. Holy moly.
Yes. I've touched my face a lot. Like, being honest, I know I do because I'm like a little bubble boy. Like, I have terrible allergies and every tree is blooming right now. So I wipe my nose. I'm like, oh, I just touched my nose. Dadgummit.
Yeah.
Candace and I were filming a video this past Saturday, and on camera, I just wiped my face and I was like, oh, I just touched my face. Dadgummit. So yeah, I think it's waking us up as Americans. As the world is, I think it's opening up to this, and been watching a lot of YouTube videos and things. And I do think this is going to change the world, change America as we known it, last year. I think things are gonna be different now.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of us see we'll see video of China just like 6 months ago, and we would constantly see people wearing masks and things like that. And I'd be like, what are they afraid of? Don't be ridiculous. But now I'm like, okay. Yeah, that makes a little bit of sense now. And this might be the new normal.
Yeah. Even in China before, they had wipes that, like, if you go put your pen pad in, like, it was a box of wipes would be beside the keypad. So you would pull the wipes out, push the keypad, and throw that wipe away. And we never did that as Americans. We're always just punching our PIN number, swiping, touching the pin that to sign your name on the credit card, because we're a paperless society now.
Mm-hmm.
And now you think about all the nasty crap that people have touched their hands. You're like, oh, so I think America in general may be more of a germaphobe now because of all this.
Yeah, totally. If you would like to see how germs spread, Mark Rober just released a new video, I believe, just a few days ago, and it is amazing, and it will really open your eyes to how germs spread. I highly recommend it. Just search for Mark Rober, Rober, and the video is called "How to See Germs Spread Coronavirus." It is a really well done video, as are all of his. But this was a very eye opening as to how much, we touch our faces and things like that.
And for me too, like, even when I work on EMS, my EMS boots don't come inside my house, because you would be amazed how much crap you track into your house and like the little crevices of the boots and things like that. So if I work on the ambulance, my EMS boots don't come inside. I unzip them, they stay out in the garage, and I walk in with my tennis shoes. So, you just kind of have to think about that stuff more now.
Yeah, without question. Especially because I read in the notes that like the norovirus and hepatitis A can survive for weeks on a surface, and like bloodborne pathogens and things like that. And yeah, in the rig, you're stepping on all kinds of just gross stuff.
Yeah, like I've seen people swipe the cracks of our boots, maybe a shoulder mic, something like that, and then see what's actually growing, and it's nasty. Like you could put a black light and like, oh, that's some gross stuff there. So we just have to be more cautious and be prepared that this may be the future of us for a while.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's see. So common signs of infection for the coronavirus.
What'd you say? I wasn't listening.
The common signs of infection for the coronavirus.
Okay, so we're going to see that you're going to have a fever and shortness of breath is kind of the big ones we're seeing, trouble breathing. And I think that kind of leads to having pneumonia, that dry cough, kind of that syndrome. But what we're screening for right now for EMS is, have you been around anybody who's tested positive? Do you have a fever? Do you have trouble breathing? And I think that's kind of what, like when you say you've been sick and you spiked a fever and you're like, no, I didn't have any shortness of breath. So you may not have, need to be tested because we do have a limited test right now for whatever reason. And so I think maybe you didn't. And like for you, like what would it have changed, honestly, if you would have went and got tested and said, oh, you test positive. You're like, okay, I'm going to go home. I'm going to drink plenty of fluid, take some Tylenol for the fever and rest and be clear. So nothing would have changed for you.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So I the second I started feeling feverish, I canceled plans that night. And I immediately knew, I was like, okay, well, basically I'm quarantined right now. I went to our Colorado Department of Health and I read exactly what their specific recommendations were for. And they kind of go through it and they were like, don't just show up to the hospital or the doctor or something like that. If you start having respiratory issues, if you start having chest pain and difficulty breathing and shortness of breath and things like that, then you call your doctor and they will tell you how to get a test. Like, don't just show up somewhere and do that. So I watched it and that was the thing. I was like, okay, I'm not having these things. I have a very high fever. I have this stupid dry cough, but in general, I kind of have a dry cough that kind of exists. I think maybe just a little bit of asthma or something like that. I don't really know. It's never bugged me enough to actually go get it checked or anything like that. And it's been pretty much my whole life. So headache. Oh man, I had a headache for like 5 days straight. It was awful. It makes everything difficult.
Mm-hmm.
No real runny nose, no real anything like that. Just fever, headache, and dry, non-productive cough. That was pretty much it.
There's no need to call EMS because you have this. There's no need to call, go call an ambulance for this kind of problem, unless you're having trouble breathing. Like if you have trouble breathing, yes, you should call an ambulance.
Yeah.
But for the most part, there's no need for you to go to the emergency room. You should call your doctor. They're going to pre-screen you, and then you get a doctor's note that says, yes, you can take the test to see if you are test positive or negative. So I think that's the problem is we're going to fill up the ERs. We're going to fill up the emergency rooms for this kind of thing that doesn't need to happen because no one has a primary doctor anymore. Like they're going to urgent care, they're going to, whatever, but no one, like our parents had a family doc and grandparents had a family doctor. No one does that anymore. So I think that's the problem is people are using the emergency room like a family doctor. And so they're just overwhelming it. And I think goes back to that's the problem with this virus.
Yeah. It was kind of, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to follow these rules because I'm not trying to overwhelm the system. One of my son's wives, my daughter-in-law, she works in the hospital system and she tells us stories. Clearly everything's HIPAA compliant, no names, no descriptive details or anything like that, but just that they had one person in there for something completely unrelated that was like demanding and screaming to be tested for the coronavirus, even though there was no possible chance that they had it. It was like something completely unrelated. And I was like, yeah, I'm not going to be part of the problem. Like, I'm not going to wait too long and make sure that I'm like really bad. If I start experiencing these symptoms, then I'll follow their directions and do what I need to do. But that's the problem is not everybody does that. And it's really tough to do. And I think it's the whole reason for the toilet paper thing. a couple people started to panic about it. A couple people saw that people were panicking about it. So they started to kind of freak out and be like, well, I better get some before I can't get some. And suddenly all the toilet paper is gone. Well, it's the same thing with healthcare. I was definitely a little bit freaked out. I'm not going to lie, but I was like, I'm just going to watch it and I'm going to follow the rules.
We talked about it before that we're a herd society. So that's exactly what we're seeing this. You're like, oh, those guys are buying 4 cases of toilet paper. I should buy 4 rolls of toilet paper.
Yeah.
So the panic buying has been crazy. I'm like, this is people, calm down. Like, this is not a problem. Buy what you need, but don't go crazy. Like, and people are just, and we're seeing that, with the toilet paper, with guns, even didn't your FFL, didn't you posted a picture on that you couldn't process anything right now?
Oh, yeah.
So we're seeing that across the state, multiple states saying they can't process FFLs right now, all this, and because so many people are buying guns. Mr. Guns and Gear has been making a fortune off his affiliate program because of the ammo he's been posting.
I know.
But honestly, like, I kind of, when this happened, I kind of looked at my ammo and going, God, I wish I had a little bit more 300 blackout. And so I went to Brownells, and this is not, they're not paying me for this. It might be, I don't know, but if they want to send me some more free ammo, I'll take it. But I went to Brownells. I went to We Like Shooting first, and then clicked on your Brownells affiliate program. I will plug you there.
Dang.
And then I bought 500 rounds of 500 blackout. Now, for me, that's not hoarding. That's not absurd. I can shoot 500 rounds easy. So I was like, I'm just going to buy what I need. I could have easily bought several thousand rounds of 500 blackout, but I was like, I'll take 500. Just makes me feel a little bit better, and store it away. So didn't panic buy, but kind of said, I could probably use a little bit more than that. So Candace did the same thing with like our food. She went to the store and said, I could probably use some hamburger meat if we have to stay quarantined for 2 weeks. So she bought a few pounds of ground beef just to put in the freezer, just in case. We didn't go buy a ton of it, but just enough to last us a couple of weeks in case something bad happens.
Yeah, and I think that's reasonable. And I've apparently been prepping for years. And what in the hell? My phone's freaking out right now. Apparently I've been prepping for a few years. I kind of knew it. Like, when this kind of all went down, I was like, nah, I'm okay. I was keep my family and I safe and fed and watered. Like, we're not gonna be eating like kings or anything. And honestly, I bought a lot of prunes. That was the thing I panic bought, because I was like, I have a lot of MREs.
Maybe you should use toilet paper then.
Right. Well, if you eat MREs, you don't really need toilet paper.
Yeah, it just stops everything up.
Exactly. So that's why you chew the gum, and then who knows? But yeah, I was like, I've got radios, I've got ammo, I've got a way to defend the things that we do have. I've got a plan. I got in touch with the and this is not sexist in any way, just my sons and my daughter's husbands, just because I know, like, there's not going to be a whole lot of discussion. I'm just like, hey, this is the thing. This is the plan. This is what we're going to do if anything happens. This is our fallback point. None of this is going to happen. I just want to put this out there just in case the worst does happen, that we have a plan together. Like, that's all it was. And I was like, all right. So yeah, we went to the store a few times just to do normal, regular grocery shopping, even though I saw people with just carts full of toilet paper, and it infuriated me. And I was like, I'm not going to be able to get it if I need it because of these jerks. I still didn't, because I didn't want to be a part of the problem. And because there's no gastrointestinal component to coronavirus. So I'm not really worried about that. And B, as long as we have running water, we'll be okay. And C, I have a ton of t-shirts from firearms companies.
Yes. I didn't think about that, but Candace is always fussed about how many t-shirts I have for different firearms company. I was like, oh, now I'm going to go tell her. I'm like, hey, we have toilet paper. We're good.
Exactly. Doesn't matter. We're good to go. So
poor fact.
I know. I probably have the most from them. I'll use them last, Pat.
Yes.
So these symptoms, they can just sit in somebody, unknowns to anybody, for two days to 2 weeks.
Yes, and I think that's the kind of, for the flu, the time frame is that we're asymptomatic is not very long. I think, if I remember right, the flu is only 1 to 3 days. If I can pull that you have the virus, but you're not showing any signs and symptoms. Now we're 2 to 14 days. So you could be walking around just fine, completely healthy for 14 days, and you're spreading it. to people. The last thing I saw was that if you are beside someone and they are positive, you have between a 1% and a 5% chance of catching it. The 1% being if you're super healthy, 5% being that you're, unhealthy or you have some risk factors there. So not, just because you sit beside someone at lunch and they have it doesn't necessarily you're going to catch it, but you do have that chance. And so I think that's the problem is why we're doing this, quarantine thing is because you can live so long and think of how many people you can come in contact with in 14 days.
Yeah. No. So I have thought about it. When the first day I came down with my fever, that was the first thing I thought. I was like, oh my God, the amount of places that I've been in the last 2 weeks are astronomical. Like grocery stores multiple times, Lowe's, Home Depot, Tandy Leather, like restaurants almost every day. And you think about that, how many people was I exposed to over those 2 weeks? And then exponentially, how many more people were they exposed to over those 2 weeks? It's thousands, tens of thousands, probably. I mean, just a restaurant full of 300 people. I go to the bathroom. I thought about it and I was like, holy, 2 days to 14 days. It's astronomical. How do you track all the places you've been? And oh my gosh, if I spread it, that would be awful.
It is amazing how many more dudes are washing their hands now.
Well, it's about time, dirty pigs.
I'm like, my little boy and I would go into the bathroom together. We wash our hands, and you see guys just turn and walk out. And I'm like, okay, and like I've been in some sketchy bathrooms. I'm like, I'll probably just use hand sanitizer. Let's just leave. But for the most part, I always take and wash my hands. And I'm like, it's amazing the dudes just turn and walk out. And I'm like, oh, you just shook his hand. Good job there, buddy. So, I think that is, it's funny. Like I made a joke about it on my Facebook page. I was like, oh, the lines now are in the men's room are as long as the women's because dudes are washing their hands. So, and it is, that multiplying, think about how many people you saw. And like we kind of talked about this before we started recording that like, I can't prove it, but I do feel like this thing was here before we knew it. How many people at SHOT Show posted on Facebook that they were super sick and tested flu negative. One of the guys who works for me and back in November got super sick, was diagnosed with bronchitis, with pneumonia as well, but tested flu negative. He had all the flu symptoms, like all of these symptoms we just talked about. He had it back in November. And so think about how many places he's been and how many people he's touched. So I don't know. And like, even if it was here at SHOT Show, think about how many people now were exposed to go take it back to their families. They take it to their workplace, they take it to their church, they take it to the gym or wherever else, and it spreads. And that's what they're trying to stop.
Let's talk about this a little bit. So this apparently originated in November of 2019. It was first classified December 2019. SHOT Show has tens of thousands of people from Asian countries coming to SHOT Show, which I'm totally fine with. I have no problem with that whatsoever. Just being realistic here. All kinds of Chinese people come to SHOT Show. All kinds of Chinese people come to Vegas. In fact, if I had to pick like the most common ethnicity that I saw, it would be Asian in Las Vegas and SHOT Show. So like, let's be honest here. If it existed in November and December and SHOT Show is the third week of January 2020, like it makes sense that it was here. And like you just said, I posted this on my Facebook a couple weeks ago. I've never seen more people get the SHOT Show crud. And every single person that I know that was tested for the flu tested negative, but the doc said that they were going to treat it as the flu. And it was exactly this, high fever, cough, shortness of breath, terrible breathing difficulties. And then I figured 80,000 people go to SHOT Show because we were like, wouldn't we have heard of like huge death spikes and things like that? And I was like, well, 80,000 people go to SHOT Show. And if we figure out the percentage of people who actually are dying from the COVID-19, would have been about 16 people from SHOT Show would have died. And most of my friends on my Facebook are not old and infirm or really high mortality rate, high risk people here. So I probably didn't see any of that, but there's probably if we're right about this, 16 people that went to SHOT Show probably died from this. If we're right, and we're totally just speculating here.
All right.
but we didn't have a test for it. They didn't know that it was a thing. It was just this crazy flu. And this flu season has been, by all counts, like the worst that we've ever had. We've had more mortalities from flu over the last few months and in the first few months of 2020 than I think we've ever seen. Stop me if I'm saying anything incorrect here. But yeah, I think that we've had this. I think it's been here.
Yeah, and I think now they're hitting the panic button, and I think the media has done a disjustice in that, honestly. I think, being prepared and being aware of it is one thing, but the panicking, I think, is on the media on all sides. And that's just my opinion. But, I think that's the problem. And, that's why you saw the panic buying. That's why you've seen all these rumors about, they're going to call in martial law, the streets are going to be shut down. And we have seen some states do shut down. And the fact that they're not really enforcing it because they can't. But they've shut down restaurants, they've shut down bars, they've shut down all this stuff, and they were able to do it. And like that's the kind of thing I'm like, if they were able to do it this time, next time it'll be even easier.
Yeah, totally agree. What's the death rate for flu? Like just the normal influenza A and B that we normally see?
It's 0.1%, right? Or 0.05%, depending on what you're looking at. But so now we're seeing that the best numbers I can see right now for this virus is 1.5. So that would put it roughly, 3 times as deadly as the flu.
Very interesting. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about treatment. Like if you get coronavirus, do you just automatically die? That's just it. You're gone. You're dead.
No. And most of the time that we're seeing these people we're starting to see recoveries, especially, China's posting what they're posting. Italy's posting, the UK, Europe is saying they're getting recoveries now. So I saw a 95-year-old have made a full recovery out of this. So you are seeing that recovery. For right now, generally the treatment is Tylenol to treat the fever because you feel like crap when you're running a fever. So generally that's what we're doing right now until we get a medicine or something like that out there that we can see it. So EMS wise, we're treating the shortness of breath. We're treating the fever, but we're not nebulizing. Like if someone needs a breathing treatment, and breathing treatment is kind of what you see. It's a mouthpiece goes in their mouth and it's blowing out the medicine off one end and they're breathing in the medicine on the other end. We're kind of starting to hold off on that because we realize now that this thing lives in the air for longer than we suspected. So if we're nebulizing a medicine, we're also going to be aerosoling the virus. So we've kind of like, all right, give it if we need it, but don't give a nebulizer treatment going into the hospital. Don't continue to spread that. So kind of looking at that, and we're just basically treating the symptoms, and that's about all you can do right now.
Yeah, for sure. I do want to discuss something that I've been reading about a little bit in depth, and that was the use of ibuprofen. So I've been seeing a lot of things about ibuprofen because when people get a headache, when they get a fever, what's like one of the best things you could possibly do for that? It's take ibuprofen, right?
Right.
Day one of my symptoms, and again, I am not claiming that I had coronavirus. I could have had a dumb flu. I don't know what it was. I noticed, and I hadn't read any of this ibuprofen. This was just like I was sitting there. I felt awful, and when I feel awful and I get a fever, I generally alternate between like acetaminophen and then several hours later ibuprofen, and then several hours later making sure that I don't exceed 6 and 24 hours of the acetaminophen, and then ibuprofen just to kind of take the edge off at the other times. Well, I would take and normally ibuprofen does great for me, and acetaminophen doesn't do anything. But I noticed immediately that when I took the ibuprofen, within a couple hours, I would feel 10 times worse. Like it may break my fever, but I just felt worse. Like I can't quantify it or substantiate it. I was just like, something is very off. And then, I don't know, maybe by day 2 or 3, someone mentioned ibuprofen, but I had already stopped taking it like a full 24 hours before because I was like, there's something weird going on, and it is making me feel crappier. So I don't know how much this is substantiated in actual science, but there's been several cases in France of younger people that were taking ibuprofen early on in the sickness that kind of seemed to enhance it because they're NSAIDs and they kind of dampen the body's immune response. That's a quote by Paul Little, a professor of primary care research at the University of Southampton in England. But it was just kind of weird that I had this like self-realization of ibuprofen, and then someone pointed out to me that there was some stuff being said about it. Have you heard anything about that? What are your thoughts there?
I have, and kind of read the articles, and it's kind of interesting, like you said. And it's weird how some people react different than Tylenol versus ibuprofen. For me, I take Tylenol because of my autoimmune disorder. I don't take ibuprofen. I think it made my symptoms worse for the autoimmune disorder. So I've been on Tylenol, but yeah, it's definitely interesting to see that there are reports of not taking this because of that. It enhances the illness. So sticking with Tylenol for the fever is what they're recommending right now.
Yeah, I've seen that too. So again, like I'm not saying there's any solid data here. I'm just saying my personal observations followed by some things that I had read. It was odd, and I can't even explain exactly. I tried to write it down, but I just felt so much worse. So who knows? Just something that I wanted to observe. So if you're generally an ibuprofen person, yeah, take some acetaminophen. Like
maybe switch it off a little bit.
Yeah, it's definitely it absolutely helped with mine, and it took 3, maybe 4 days for my fever to break. I was pretty much feverish nonstop for 2 to 3 days, and finally it broke, and it was a nice thing. And acetaminophen, definitely, I've weaned myself almost completely off. I'm only taking 2 a day now, just to help with the headache, and I haven't had any fever to speak of for over 48 hours, I think. So
nice. But yeah, I mean, and staying hydrated through this, making sure you're getting plenty of rest is important as well, to kind of give your body that ability to reset and rest on it. Helping with the cough, maybe you can do some warm humidified air. Maybe you have a humidifier that you can run. Maybe you turn a shower on to get that warm moisture coming through, because our lungs like that warm, moist air coming in. It's what our nose does, and kind of filters air as well. But it warms and humidifies the air as it comes in. So our lungs really want that. I'm trying not to cough right now. Just thinking about coughing. I'm trying not to cough. So
I'm
just thinking about it. So, just they're really, as of right now, as recording this, there's nothing else for you to do except treat the symptoms.
Yeah, just be cautious. Like, this is a thing that I've kind of always known and felt, is that, when your body heats up and has a fever, it's your body's natural response trying to force the virus out. So having a fever is not a bad thing. And in fact, I after I decided I wasn't going to take ibuprofen anymore, I just let it burn, man. I made sure I wasn't getting anywhere dangerous. Like, I think 102.9 was about the highest I got, but man, I was burning up at points. And I was like, I'm just going to let it run its course. I'm going to let my body do what it needs to do. I'm not going to try to hide the fever like I normally do. I'm just going to let it burn out. And the problem with that is that you become dehydrated very quickly. And let's see, even a few days before I came down with a fever, I was like, okay, what are some of the things that I might want to do? Excuse me. And that is acetaminophen. So I made sure I had plenty of that. Theraflu, which has acetaminophen in it. I was like, these are things, if anyone in my family comes down with the flu, like some creature comforts, Theraflu is good for that. And then hydration. So I was like, I'm going to go to the store and get just a bunch of Pedialyte, just to make sure that we can get rehydrated if we need to, something that's real calm and very hydrating. But Pedialyte was gone, like absolutely gone. You know what wasn't gone? Coconut water, which is actually, there's a lot of good evidence that shows that it hydrates better than regular water. And I did confirm that with a couple medical reports before I actually said it on the show. But it looks like it's a good source of hydration. So I bought a few cases of coconut water just to make sure that I could rehydrate. And that's kind of what my diet consisted of. Is
does they have like a strong taste? I've never had coconut water.
No,
like kind of a hint of coconut, or does it taste anything?
It's not, I wouldn't say it's great, but it's not awful either. It's not bad at all.
Interesting. I've never. So yeah, Pedialyte for me, like that was my first choice. I'm like, all right, let's take Pedialyte. Let's use that. Before Gatorade was, now you feel how much sugars are in that, and that's not good for you. That's going to that will give you some GI issues. All that sugar onto your system. So if Gatorade's your only choice, you got to split it. Like you got to mix it like 50-50 with water and Gatorade. But Pedialyte is a better choice if you can find it. So
yeah, I wasn't able to find it, so I got what I thought was the next best thing, which was some coconut water. And honestly, for a couple of days, I had no appetite. I would forced myself just to choke down some high protein foods, things like that. And I got protein shakes, like just some, I think it was 160 grams of protein. And I think it was only 1 gram of sugar per serving because I didn't want to just ingest a bunch of sugar. So coconut water protein shakes just from the store were definitely something that helped get me through it, whatever it
Yep.
was.
Like I had the protein shakes that I take when I work out, things like that. And then I take a multivitamin every single day.
Mm.
And your body doesn't absorb like pills as well, like pulling those vitamins. Like it's much better to eat like the raw fruit, the vegetables, things like that to get those nutritions. But I take a multivitamin, and then I take a vitamin C supplement right now too. It's the little vitamin C gummies. I like them; they're good.
Me too.
But they're like the Flintstones gummies, like we used to have when we were kids.
Yeah.
But having that increased vitamin C, making sure you're staying hydrated. It's been really nice weather here in South Carolina, so we've been hanging out on the back porch, trying to get the sunshine, get the vitamin D as well. So just trying to make your body as healthy as possible to try to build up resistance and build a wall up as quickly as possible.
Yeah, 100% agree. Get plenty of rest. Another thing that I did that was very annoying to my lady was I constantly was making sure that I was taking deep breaths, because I notice just in my life, like when people, when they can't breathe, when they I don't know, they're trying not to cough, so they're breathing really shallowly or something, they always seem to go downhill. So whenever I get sick and I'm worried about like respiratory, I'm constantly like exercising my lungs. Just like every few minutes, just take 4 or 5 just real deep 100% breaths. I have no idea if that works. I was like, if this is a respiratory thing, I'm gonna go down fighting.
Yes.
And it was just taking deep breaths, trying to make sure that I wasn't breathing shallowly, trying to make sure that my lungs were as healthy as they possibly could be. Don't know if that's retarded or not. It's just what I was doing.
If if you've got a stethoscope, you can listen to lung sounds. They're not going to be that clear. You're going to kind of hear like a raspy, not really like Rice Krispie treat kind of fluid kind of thing going on. Usually pneumonia's on one side or the other. Typically, you can get bilateral pneumonia, but that's usually super sick. But usually pneumonia is one side. It can be in the middle of the lungs, the upper part, the lower part of the lungs. You kind of hear the different lung sounds there. If you've got a pulse ox as well, you can use that. You should be about 99, 100% if you don't smoke, if you're fairly healthy. But you should at least be above 93, 94% just sitting there. So you can kind of almost self-diagnose a little bit.
Yeah, I never went below 95. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, sorry.
I never went below 95. I was definitely checking pulse ox. So yeah, I totally agree with you. I don't actually have a stethoscope, which I was like, maybe I should. And I was like, well, what do I do with it?
Yeah, so like I like the Littmans. You can buy cheap ones, but the Littmans are going to be probably what you need to actually be able to hear. Oh, it's coughing. I'm trying not to cough.
I know.
It's crazy.
Like coronavirus.
Yeah.
But yeah, just make sure that if you do get sick, like, look, I know that it sucks to drink, especially when you have a sore throat, and to eat. But it's so important, like, to keep your strength up, especially for something like this that is like multi-week engagement of this disease.
And probably lay out the alcohol.
Yeah, actually, I haven't had a drink in at least a week now, which it's good. It hydrates you. I mean, it's not like it was difficult or anything. I don't want to say that, but yeah, that was one of the first things I did. I got a fever. I was like, boom, absolutely no alcohol whatsoever. But yeah, like, it sucks, but you have to keep your strength up. You have to struggle to get stuff down. And since there was no vomiting, there was no gastrointestinal with this, like, it wasn't necessarily a problem. Like, I made sure that I was eating things that were easy, that were calorie rich, like tuna fish, and just choking it down.
Yeah, fresh fruits, fresh vegetables. Try to lay off the sodium, the cans. I can't cough now. Good gracious. I'm going to have the virus before we get done with the show. Like, oh my gosh. But just trying to be healthy, exercise a little bit, get outside and walk. While you're in quarantine, get outside, like, go for a walk. Spend some time with your family, your kids, outside playing, just kind of take advantage of this time.
That was another thing I did, is I went out and I walked around a park. I made sure I stayed away from everybody, hands in pockets. I didn't get near anybody, but I was like, man, if I'm going to fight this thing, like, I'm going to fight it. And again, it's probably just a stupid flu, and everyone who hears this is going to be like, "Oh my god, what a loser!"
But, even if you got the flu, like you give your body the best chance to fight it. And this could be a cold. I ended up with a sore throat, runny nose, no fever, but it was a cold. So to give my body the best chance to fight it, you got to be healthy with it.
Yeah, 100%. And honestly, like if you can't right now, like get up and go take a walk, like think about that, man. Like if we all get through this, like this has to make some changes to our lives, right? Like if you bought 4,000 rounds of ammo, but you can't just get up and go walk a mile at will with ease, like that's a problem. And it's definitely time to do some really tough thinking with yourself there about what is important. And what doesn't matter, right? That was the first thing I thought of. I was like, man, I got radios, I got batteries, I actually have like wireless cameras that run off batteries and things like that. I've got guns, machine guns, so much medical gear from medicalgearoutfitters.com. I've got it all. Like I've got it all. And then suddenly I was down with the flu, and I was like, oh man, like hopefully I do believe that I'm pretty low risk. I do have high blood pressure that's managed well with medicine. It's hereditary. There's really nothing I could do about it. So I don't believe that I'm at huge risk to die from coronavirus or COVID-19. But I was like, damn, you know what? I really got to take this seriously, because it doesn't matter how much you prep. If you can't run a mile, if you can't walk a mile, if you can't do a sit up, like nothing else matters. So just
that's me. Like that's why I work out. I exercise. I want to be able to play with my kids, play football, play sports for them. Hopefully, I can play sports with my grandkids when that time comes. I'm part of a specialty team at EMS. I'm the second oldest on the team, third oldest on the team, and we got a bunch of young guys. So I'm team leader. So I make sure that I kick their butt every single time we do tryouts. We got a young guy who beat me this time. He's probably not listening, so it's fine. But a little 22-year-old to come out and smoked us, and I was like, "That gummit!" Like I was pissed.
Yeah.
But that's what since I'm team leader, like I want to make sure that when those guys go out for the run, that I'm leading the pack. We do push-ups, sit-ups. I'm leading the pack. If we're on the trail, something like that, I'm trying to lead the pack. So now I always let the young buck do it. I'm like, here, carry this for me. But trying to stay physically fit, like you said, like you can have all the food, all the water, but something stupid takes you down, then nothing to do about it.
Yeah. And it was definitely because I'm overweight. I'm absolutely, I mean, I don't think I'm morbidly obese by any means. I carry my weight reasonably well. Like I look fat, don't get me wrong, but like I still play hockey and like I can do cardio and things like that. But it was kind of a wake up call.
Exercising more though.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Eating better and exercising without question. It has been a huge awakening, and it was something I already knew, but to actually be like, oh man, I am so prepared. My family's prepared. Like I've got this dialed in. And then to get sick day one, I was like, without health, nothing else really matters. And you're just fooling yourself if you say that it does.
Yep.
I don't know, man. Should I just wear like a full Tyvek suit and a gas mask? I don't know. Like what kind of PPE do I need?
Yes, you should. So typically what you're seeing now is people are wearing N95 masks or surgical masks. They're wearing gloves. Maybe they have a full gown on, and I keep coughing. Dadgummit.
You're welcome.
Yeah, you gave it to me through the microphone.
I did. Just for the record, he's in another state than I am.
Yes, we are well over each other, but God. We first saw the N95 mask, and now like that was it. And you have to be fitted for an N95 mask. I sold N95 masks on my website. They're one size fits all, but to be a true fit, they needed to fit your face. Sean, you have a beard, and so N95 mask is not going to seal on your face.
Yep.
You have, a surgical mask is kind of what, but right now we can't get N95 masks. So now it's like, all right, we'll just wear a surgical mask. It's better than nothing. It prevents you from touching your face, things like that. So, and then you're seeing full gown because these droplets are falling. They're laying on your clothes, things like that. So you're going to be able to protect your clothing. So you wear the gowns to take it off. And so if you can find that kind of gear, that's what you should be wearing if you're treating someone or think they have COVID-19. If you're going to Walmart, you don't need a mask. You don't need a N95 mask. You just don't touch anything and wash your hands. There's no need to freak out going to Walmart or Lowe's or somewhere like that.
This is one of the things that annoys me so much is I literally see people walking in the store with all these masks on, and they're doing it for prevention. But I'm like, do you not understand like how things work on a microscopic level and how this virus is just going to go straight through that surgical mask probably, or around the seams? If not, like, it's not fitted. There's so much air like just going in there. How do you think the air is getting in there? Like the same way that the virus is going to get in there.
If you have cancer or something like that, then yeah, I'll give you a pass on this. But
yeah, do whatever you can.
Then there's no need to it. Stop.
Yeah. Now, if you have a cough or something and you want to wear a mask, maybe that mask is going to catch those respiratory droplets or whatever, and that's going to be a good thing. So like, it's not necessarily for prevention as much as it is to prevent passing it to other people. Like if you have to go to the store and there's nothing else you can do, like clean your hands before you go in, wear a mask before you go in. But these people that are buying up all these masks, they're gone. Like there's none on Amazon. There's none at medicalgearoutfitters.com. Like they're gone. And guess what that means? That means that our first responders and our medical staff, that they can't get them now. And
right. I have to reuse. Like my system is having to reuse N95 masks because they don't have enough. They were trying to order it, and like I admit, they were late to the game ordering, and now they have just enough. And so it's a problem. And I know that they're like 3M is the big manufacturer here in the United States. They're up in production, but you can't just up production to what we need, the amount we need overnight. It doesn't work that way. So they're trying, but it is. And like we literally sold out. We had probably, I would say 1,000 N95 masks in the shop. And over a weekend, they were gone. And I was like, holy crap, that was fast.
Yeah.
And I called Monday, said, hey, I need some more. And they're like, good luck, teacher. You're out. I'm like, okay, we're done.
Done.
Fast.
Yeah, so that stuff. I know that Blue Alpha Gear and Coltac. Before I go to that, CDC guidelines are basically like, obviously we've got all the great masks like N95, and isn't there an XN95 or something like that?
N100 as well.
Okay, so all great masks. And then they're like, if those are completely unavailable, well, then you could probably use like a surgical mask. And then if they're like, if those are unavailable, you could probably wrap a scarf around your head, like because something is better than nothing.
Correct. And it's basically done for right now. We're like, all right, let's stop even touching your face. Like stop trying to induce that virus. So, yeah, I shared this on my Skinny Minute page, and we shared it on the Civilian Medical Facebook page.
Yeah. So, Coltac and Blue Alpha Gear, they're recognizing that this is like a huge problem. So they're actually doing a GoFundMe to raise money to make masks. They're making them out of some kind of cloth. So clearly they're not the surgical masks. They're not N95, but they're kind of in that third CDC category of better than nothing, just for healthcare providers and first responders and stuff to like have something, if nothing else. And they're doing a GoFundMe. Go find it on the Blue Alpha Gear or the Coltac Facebook pages. If you're interested, I donated $50 this morning. I think it's a noble effort. If nothing else, just, doing something and honestly keeping Americans working, I think is also a huge thing. Yeah. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm just saying yes. And I think it's a great idea. Blue Alpha Gear, those guys have been great to me, great to you. So yep. They're great for the gun community. So we can support them. I will absolutely be donating right after the show.
Yeah. And Coltac too. I've been watching Coltac's page. They've had this, they've been doing it for making gowns and stuff for their local hospitals and stuff for like a week now, I think.
That's awesome.
Man, just what good people. And again, better than nothing. They're like in that third category when all the Karens bought all the N95s and the surgical masks off Amazon. I actually got in 100 masks, maybe, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, something like that. Just the surgical masks. Just nice. I wanted to throw some into med kits and stuff. And yeah. So I was like, oh, well, I should sell these for $1,000 each.
I found a bunch. We were where we had moved. We had a bunch of boxes that were in the garage, and it was basically, gun stuff, gun parts, magazines, stuff like that. So I'm digging through, emptying out boxes, and I found this box. I'm like, holy cow, this is the jackpot. Like it was N95 mask, it was surgical masks. And I was like, babe, look at this stuff. This is perfect. We should sell it. And she's like, no, don't sell it. So yeah, we found a bunch.
That's wonderful. I think we've covered about what we want to do for today, and before Skinny Medic passes away from
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I'm drinking water now. I'm paranoid.
Oh man. Let's see. What's the best place to get information? Because the media is. I don't trust the media. I haven't ever. I'm not saying this is a new thing.
So I've been looking at the CDC website, and there again, do I trust the government 100%? No, but I think the CDC is probably the most accurate spot to get stuff. The World Health Organization is another one we've been looking at. And there's some cool websites out there that we were both talking about how we're watching live data from the United States, showing how many cases, which state, what the mortality rate is, stuff like that. So I've been trying to post links and accurate information on my Skinny Medic Facebook page. So you can go follow me over there. I'll do a shameless plug for myself.
Oh, heck yeah.
But
worldometers.info/coronavirus is where I get all my stats pretty much. That one's been pretty reliable so far. No panic or anything like that. Just straight up 100% stats.
Yeah, and just be cautious. Like we were talking about before, just be cautious where you're getting your information from. I said in my first YouTube video about this, that if the website has more ads than information, you should probably be worried about it.
Yes.
It's trying to get ad views, trying to get clicks. So be cautious about those kind of websites, things like that. So Sean and I were talking about, I think we're going to keep doing this for as long as this is an issue. And it may be, hopefully it's just a week or two run, or I can run back on the trauma like we want to talk about. But for right now, I think this is a real issue, whether we like it or not. It's an issue, and it's here to stay for a little bit.
Yeah, 100% agree. So if you're out there, learn not to touch your face, wash your hands for 20 seconds at a time, hand sanitize religiously, actually practice social distancing. If I can go off for just 1 second, I'm seeing pictures of Las Vegas with not a person in sight on the strip. Chicago, the streets are barren. Ryan from Brownells, big city in Iowa, just dead on the streets. Yesterday went out and I drove. I didn't actually go into any stores or anything because I'm being responsible as I can. But there was just tons of people congregating everywhere. The grocery store was packed. The parking lot was packed. I didn't go in. Tons of people just kind of hanging out. We drove down a residential street and there was probably 35 people on the street talking to each other, just like close quarters. I don't think people in Colorado Springs are taking it seriously enough yet, even though our grocery store shelves are empty. I'm surprised they're not inside, just like eating like kings and using all that toilet paper. But I'm not saying to follow what the government says. I'm just saying do what's best for your family. Understand how this stuff is caught. Understand how it's transmitted. Understand what you can do. Wash your hands. Don't touch your face. And do what's best for your family.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what we're doing here. I could care less what the government tells me to do. We're still going to do it, but I'm doing what's best for my family, what's best for my kids, what's best for my wife's grandmother. And that's kind of what we're looking at. So we haven't panicked, but life goes on, and we're trying our best. Unfortunately, I did have to go to Lowe's, but I kept my hands in my pocket. I wiped down the cart that I was using, and I washed my hands when I got home. So trying to be as best as possible, be responsible for it.
Yeah, 100%. Because don't forget, you may never get it. If you're healthy, you're probably not. There's what, like a 0.02 chance if you're young and healthy that you're going to get this. But guess what? You can transmit it. You can carry it. And that old lady that smiled at you at the grocery store, it's easy enough to, if you're carrying it, that you just signed her death sentence or something like that as you walked by and had a slight cough or picked up some tomatoes and then put them down, something like that. So just something to think about. We're not in this alone. We have a lot of people in this country that are just being extremely selfish right now, and that's fine. When it comes down to it, when the flu kicks off, don't come to me for anything, because I've got my family under my umbrella of protection to worry about. But being a little bit socially responsible, I don't think that's asking too much of people. And maybe reach out if there's some old people that you know of. What about people who are deployed and their grandparents who may not be getting the care that they need? Reach out. do something for your community, but always do what's best for your family.
Perfect.
All right, that'll do it. We'll talk to you very, very soon, and don't get that Rona. Wait a minute, I forgot to do something. medicalgearoutfitters.com. Do you still have stuff in stock, or have you been cleaned out?
We have stuff in stock. We are good to go, except for CPR shields. That's the only thing I cannot get right now that we're working on. So we are basically, if you order a kit that has a CPR shield in it, we are shipping the kit with a letter that says, I owe you a CPR shield.
Cool.
And as soon as they come in, we're going to ship you. So we're still getting supplies in. We're still getting bags in. I talked to the guys at VanQuest. They're still shipping. Condor's still shipping. We're still getting supplies in. So we're good. Just it's a little bit slower right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't forget, if the flu glue kicks off, medical gear is going to be one of the best things you could possibly have. So medicalgearoutfitters.com, coupon code is Civilian Medical. We'll catch you soon.
Find us and subscribe at civmedical.com.